Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong became famous worldwide when he took that momentous first step onto the moon. For over 4 decades, he has been an established astronaut when he achieved that groundbreaking moment. He had worked hard for many previous years, gaining expertise and experience, preparing him for the big event. A young boy's dream. Since Neil had been a young boy, he had always had his family's tremendous support to achieve his dreams. He knew, even as a child, that the more he dreamt, the further he would get. Neil Alden Armstrong was born on August the 5th, 1930, in Ohio. He was the eldest of 3 children of Stephen and Viola Engel Armstrong. Aeroplanes had drawn his interest from the age of 6 when he took his first aeroplane ride. He began taking flying lessons at age 14, and on his 16th birthday he was issued a pilot's license. A serious pilot even at that age, Armstrong built a small wind tunnel, a tunnel through which air is forced at controlled speeds to study the effect of its flow in the basement of his home. He also performed experiments using the model planes he had made. Through such activities, he was preparing for what would be a distinguished career in aeronautics or the design, construction and navigation of aircrafts. Armstrong was also interested in outer space at a young age. His fascination was fueled by a neighbour who owned a powerful telescope. Armstrong was thrilled with the views of the stars, the moon and the planets which he saw through this device. Years of training. Armstrong went to Indiana's Purdue University in 1947 and received a US Navy scholarship. After 2 years of study, he was called to active duty with the Navy and won his jet pilot at Wings Pensacola Naval Air Station in Florida. At the age of just 20, he was the youngest pilot in his squadron, and Armstrong kept pushing himself and also completed a degree in aeronautical engineering in 1955. In his personal life, Armstrong started to settle down. He married Janet Sheeran on January 28, 1956. The couple soon added to their family. Son Eric arrived in 1957, followed by a daughter, Karen, in 1959. Sadly, though, Karen died of complications. The following year, though, the Armstrongs welcomed their 3rd child, Mark. In 1962, Armstrong decided to become an astronaut, and he applied for the NASA selection and training. And in that September, he became America's first non-military astronaut, and his first flight assignment was as a backup or alternate pilot for Gordon Cooper of the Gemini 5 mission. Armstrong continued his specialised training on the Gemini spacecraft and was selected as the command pilot for the Gemini 8 mission. With co-pilot David Scott, they launched from Cape Kennedy, Florida on March 16, 1966. The Gemini 8 achieved orbit and docked as planned with another orbiting vehicle. But shortly afterwards, the Gemini 8 went out of control. Armstrong detached his craft, corrected the problem, and brought Gemini 8 down in the Pacific Ocean, only 1.1 nautical miles from the planned landing point. Armstrong's cool and professional conduct made a strong impression on his superiors as the training for the Apollo program was developing. In January 1969, Armstrong was selected as commander for Apollo 11, the first lunar moon landing mission. On July 16, at 9:32 a.m., Armstrong, with astronauts Michael Collins and Edwin Aldrin, lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Apollo 11 reached the moon on July the 18th and circled it twice. Another 2 days later, at 4:17 p.m., on July the 20th, a large proportion of the Earth's population was listening to Armstrong's radio transmission reporting that the Eagle had landed. At 10:56 p.m, he set foot on the moon, saying, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Armstrong and Aldrin spent nearly 2.5 hours walking on the moon. The astronauts set up various scientific instruments and experiments on the surface and left behind a plaque reading, Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. We came in peace for all of mankind. They also took photographs, including their own footprints. Although Neil Armstrong achieved a phenomenal accomplishment, he had faced many challenges. His main rivals had been the Russians, who also wanted to reach and step onto the moon and receive glory. He is remembered for quoting, "Don't tell me I can't." This grit and determination to achieve his goals is what led to him being so successful. Life after the moon. Apollo 11 was Armstrong's final space mission. He joined NASA's Office of Advanced Research and Technology, where one of his main activities was to promote research into controlling high-performance aircraft by computer. He continued to be an inspiration and role model for children and adults of all ages. Armstrong also made occasional public appearances at the Neil Armstrong Air and Space Museum in his hometown of Ohio. In 2012, Armstrong underwent a heart bypass operation, and a few weeks later, on August 25, 2012, at the age of 82, Neil Armstrong died of surgery complications. Shortly after his death, his family released a statement. Honour his example of service, accomplishment and modesty, and the next time you walk outside on a clear night and see the moon smiling down at you, think of Neil Armstrong and give him a wink. His colleague, Buzz Aldrin, who travelled to the moon with him, said, "My friend Neil took the small step but giant leap that changed the world and will forever be remembered as a landmark moment in the human history."